The sun beat hard on the high desert as Luke Marston tugged his horse along a narrow canyon trail, boots coated in dust, throat burning from thirst. He had been riding for 2 days, with no destination except survival, following rumors of ranch work that never seemed to lead anywhere. His canteen was nearly dry, his stomach hollow, and his thoughts drifting toward turning back, if only he had anywhere to go. The wind carried the smell of sage and heat, stinging his eyes as he stumbled down a rocky slope, hoping to find a bit of shade. That was when his boot struck something solid, something that didn't feel like ordinary stone. A glimmer caught his eye, bright, sharp, impossible to ignore. Luke knelt, brushing away layers of sand with trembling fingers. As the dust lifted, a vein of gold revealed itself, running through the rock-like sun, captured beneath the earth. His breath caught. It wasn't just a nugget or a scattered flake. It was a fortune lying bare in the open, enough to turn a broke drifter into one of the richest men in the territory. For a long moment he stared, stunned and hungry for more than food. The world around him seemed to hold its breath. Then he felt it, the weight of eyes watching him. He turned slowly. On the cliff above, an Apache scout stood silent as a mountain shadow, one hand resting near his bow but not raising it. The young man's face was unreadable calm, as if he were measuring something inside Luke's soul rather than the scene before him. Luke's father had raised him on the rule that had kept him alive through rough years. If something isn't yours, you don't take it. And this land, this gold, this canyon, they all belong to someone else. Luke lifted his hands in a gesture of respect, not fear. His heart pounded with the ache of walking away from fortune, but he backed off step by step until he stood nowhere near the exposed vein. He removed his hat, gave a small nod to the scout, and turned away. The gold glittered behind him like a dream he was refusing on purpose. He didn't try to speak, didn't argue, didn't linger. The scout watched him walk until the canyon swallowed Luke back into the heat. No words were exchanged, yet something passed between them, an unspoken recognition. Luke left hungry, tired, and poorer than ever, but with the strange, steady feeling that he had done the only right thing he could. He never imagined that the moment he walked away would echo across 13 long years. 13 years had carved themselves into Luke Marston's face like the canyons he used to wander. His once strong stride had slowed to a limp from a horse that slipped in winter mud, and his ranch, once full of promise, was barely holding together. Fences leaned like tired old men. Cattle numbers had dropped to half of what they once were. And every month the bank's letters arrived with sharper words and thicker threats. Luke burned most of the letters in the stove just so he didn't have to look at the red ink screaming at him. Nights felt heavier than days, and more than once he sat on the porch wondering if everything he'd built was about to collapse. A storm came through one evening, a vicious wave of dust that rattled windows and scraped the land raw. When it finally died, the air hung thick and still. Luke stepped outside to check the damage, expecting broken rails or scattered tools, but instead, at the front gate, a lone rider waited. The figure sat unmoving, wrapped in a long blanket, horse standing calm as if it had been there for hours. Luke approached slowly, lantern in hand, and the light caught the rider's face. The years fell away in an instant. It was the Apache scout from the canyon. The same steady eyes, now older, sharper, full of knowledge Luke couldn't guess at. Luke felt a strange twist in his chest, not fear, but recognition. "You," Luke whispered. The scout nodded once. 13 winters, he said quietly, his voice steady. "Our people remember." Before Luke could respond, 2 more riders emerged from the shadows, carrying a long deer-hide-wrapped bundle across their saddles. They dismounted without a word, stepping with reverence rather than urgency. Luke invited them inside because what else could he do? And they followed him into the dimly lit kitchen. The scout gestured for the others to place the bundle on Luke's table. When they unwrapped it, Luke almost staggered. Inside lay a carved wooden box filled with gold, Apache gold, gathered over generations, glowing warm and deep under the lantern light. Luke stared at it, stunned, feeling the weight of his entire life shift in an instant. "I don't understand," he said, voice rough. "You found what is sacred," the scout replied, "and you left it untouched. No man does that without honor. You kept our land safe from greedy hands. Our elders repay such a deed." Luke felt his throat tighten. For years he had fought alone against drought, debt, and luck that ran thin. But now, in the quiet of his weathered kitchen, surrounded by men he barely knew, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: grace. The next weeks felt unreal to Luke Marston, as if he were living in someone else's life. The gold given by the Apache tribe rested in a locked chest beneath his bed, but he didn't touch it at first. He spent long evenings sitting on the porch, pipe in hand, staring at the open land and trying to understand why he, not rich, not powerful, not even lucky, had been chosen for such a gift. The memory of the canyon returned to him clearer than ever. The way the gold had glowed, the silence that had filled the air, and the young scout's watchful eyes. It wasn't the gold that mattered. It was the moment he had chosen to walk away from it. Somehow, that choice had found its way back to him. When Luke finally used the gold, he moved carefully, almost reverently. He paid off every debt with the bank, watching the manager's jaw drop as each red-inked notice was cleared. He bought enough healthy cattle to repopulate his ranch, but not so many that it looked like he was flaunting wealth. For the first time in a decade, he rode across his land without feeling the sting of helplessness. Yet the best part wasn't the recovery. It was the chance to do something meaningful with what he'd been given. Luke used a portion of the gold to drill a deep water well at the edge of the valley. The well sat purposely between his ranch and the reservation, so both settlers and Apache families could drink freely. In the dry season, people gathered there, children laughing, elders resting in the shade, ranchers watering thirsty horses. No one asked who paid for it. The land seemed to accept it as something that should have been there all along. Then Luke donated another portion of the gold to help build the new tribal school. He made no speech, no announcement. He simply left the funds with the elders, asking only that it be used for the children. Word traveled back to him slowly, carried through visitors, traders, and the occasional Apache rider passing through. News that the school was rising stone by stone. One evening, just as the sun dipped behind the mesas in a molten blaze, several riders approached Luke's ranch. He recognized the scout. First, the same man who had appeared at his gate months earlier, but this time he was joined by elders, their faces lined with stories older than anything Luke could imagine. They formed a circle around his porch, solemn yet peaceful. Luke stepped forward quietly, unsure if this was a warning, a meeting, or something else entirely. The eldest woman approached him and placed her hand on his shoulder, her touch light but firm. "Your heart did not change with gold," she said. "Our people see this. So today, we give you something greater than treasure." She passed him a carved wooden staff, etched with symbols of peace and alliance. It was a sacred gift rarely offered beyond their own people, a sign that Luke was now trusted on both sides of the valley. Luke stood beneath the rising stars, the staff warming in his hands, and realized that life had